Board games, board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this dreaming with a little bit of singing, and today I'll try to explore the advantages of having fewer games or having more. How many games should I really have? I've got maybe 400. Is that too many? Is it bad? Is it a sign of overconsumption? Maybe I couldn't stop. Maybe I kept on buying games and now it's time to drop the number. Board games and how many I should have, it's what I'm talking about. Board games and how many I should have, I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It is 10 a.m. UK time and I am Bez, and as almost always happens at 10 a.m. UK time, 2 days ago I had a wee break, but going to now keep on going until possibly episode 700. We will see. Basically, as long as I'm able to get internet connection when I go off on conventions, I will continue to do this stream, even if I'm at a convention, although it might be a super quick thing. Anyway, so yes, Busy Beats and board game blether. So called because even when I've got a topic in mind today, which is how many games should I have, talking about libraries and consumerism and the advantages of big collections, small collections, and like accessibility of all these games, like availability, having different things for different people. But it is not like a prepared presentation. It's a blether, and I'd love you to get involved. It's just me talking off the cuff. If you have any input, if you have any thoughts on how many is a good number, like, let's not be judgmental. I definitely didn't want to make this judgmental about you. And for everyone, this is going to be a different number. How many board games you should have is probably different to how many board games Chris or McCall should have, is probably different to how many board games Mina should have. And also the word should, let's kind of address the connotations really quickly. There is no moral imperative. It's not like if I have more games than a certain amount, I'm a bad person. It's just that, let's be honest, I have a limited amount of space. That's the main thing. That's the bottleneck. I mean, I've already got the games, but the space is what makes me think, oh yeah, I should be cutting them down. And I am, for the record, as I unpack my boxes, I'll play a few games, and I'm trying to, in the first playthrough, get rid of at least half of them. That is my broad objective. But yet, I still continue getting more games, if nothing else. I'm, drawing more games. To be fair, I already had the card, so it's not like it uses more space. But, I'll buy, stock, but that's a separate thing. And so I'm not including stock and things for selling and stuff like that for trading. I'm just counting as personal games in my personal collection. How many would be a good number for me? And as I ponder that, maybe you might come up with something that's of vague value. And Stream Elements, for some reason, is telling me it's really stretching time. I did just sit down 5 minutes ago, but you know what? I am going to take on that recommendation because it was said twice, which seems like a technological failure. But anyway, let's go and start talking about, before we get to the main topic, recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. what have been some of my recent highlights? What did I do yesterday? Well, obviously, started off doing the stream and doing a cooking show. That was good fun, like seeing everything turn red. I ate a plate of that, and I ate another plate of that. I wasn't feeling 100%. I honestly I just watched a lot of cartoons, and I'm feeling okay with that. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting decision. If I had gone out somewhere, it would. But yeah, I had some nice chats online. I ended up talking to someone who seemed like meeting someone online who seems quite friendly, which was great. And I might potentially meet them in real life in the not too distant future. We will have to see. But yes, my 5 highlights. I am going to say that a warm bed, having the stir fry, that was tasty. Playing, yeah, the cartoons were relaxing. Having some chats on Discord and also having a video call with someone online. That was lovely. Achievements was, yeah, I never actually got out of the house. Oh well. I did, I cooked a thing. I made a couple of posts. I kind of yeah, what did I like? Posted a couple of things on social media, kind of caught up with some comments. But like I took care of myself, giving myself permission to. That itself can be an achievement. But let's move on. Let's talk about brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? So let's talk about big collections. Let's talk about small collections. Let's talk about ownership of games. Why do you even want to have a game? Why is it important that you have it as opposed to a friend having it or just letting everyone else always bring all the games? What is good about owning a game? I mean, I guess one thing about owning a game is that if you own a game, then you get to play it more often. If I really like a game and I'm like, you know what, I want to play this with McCall every time that McCall comes over because we're having so much fun with it, then one of the two of us needs to own that game. And, well, not necessarily, again, it could be from a library, but owning it means that I've always got access to it, and I don't need to feel bad about not giving it back to someone else. Owning it means that I can take the time to peruse the box, to put the cards together in different ways, to ponder what is the best system for putting all these things together. And really learning the game in a kind of visceral level. I love that thing of when you own a game and then you're able to take it out and then you've played it a couple of times. You're like, okay, what's going on? And then, yeah, sure, this might be ruining the surprise, but then you get out all the cards and you're like, oh, I wonder what kind of mathematical patterns were behind all of these cards. And then you lay them out and then you calculate the values of everything. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. And it gives you a better understanding. And if you're only playing other people's copies, then, you know, it needs to be packed away at the end of the night. Typically, you don't get to spend a long time arranging things and thinking, oh, that goes with that. And sometimes that can give you a deeper appreciation of a game. That's pretty cool. I mean, own a game, like, I guess it's up there on your shelf. So potentially if someone, well, it might look good, but more importantly, if someone comes over, then there might be a game that you wouldn't have thought to borrow from the library or they wouldn't have brought over. And so if you've got it accessible, it's like, hey, do you like this thing? And sometimes you've got... So let's start getting into the value of big collections versus small collections. And also, brilliant thing, lids. I mean, I've talked about bottles, but, you know, if I refill a bottle, fill it up with water, put it in my bag, you know, that would be pretty rubbish and terrible idea if it wasn't for lids. So lids are also a brilliant thing. Anyway, let me carry on. As always, feel free to comment, ask questions, fun, like, follow. I am interested in your opinions. How many games do you have? How many games do you think I should have? And I am inviting your criticism. I am inviting your judgment. Don't worry, I can handle it. It's all good. So let's. So let's start off talking about big versus small. Okay, accessibility. That's the whole notion of people needing to have a big collection. People saying, "Oh, I've got so many games," and other people saying, "Oh, I've got a big collection. I've got like 300 games." And then you see people showing photos of everything that they brought back from UK Games Expo or Essen or Gen Con or any other convention. And sometimes seeing this, you can get the impression that unless I have an equally big collection, I'm not a real gamer. And that's a problem. I mean, that sort of gatekeeping, that sort of barrier is not cool for the collection. And hello, J Fool's Guard. The question of the day is approximately how many games do you own? And but yeah, let me know. Like, I feel like there is an accessibility issue in this whole push towards saying, "Hey, you have this many games," like it's a badge of honor. I mean, it's impressive. It's a privilege. I mean, it affords you more opportunities of choosing what you want to play with, but it's not really vital. I mean, I believe that someone could be more of a gamer with like 20 games, like playing them all the time, playing other people's games, just really enjoying games for what they are, playing digital games, all sorts of things, compared to someone who has thousands of games, but they basically never get played. And it's not, I mean, there is no barrier in terms of you must play this much in order to be a gamer. I just want to remind people, if you have a couple of games and you really love them, and you play, for me, what makes a gamer, like this is a side tangent, but what makes a gamer for me is if you think about games when you're not playing games, frankly, like if you're willing to not just like after the game be like, "Oh, that was interesting, I like that, and didn't like that," and having that quick 2-minute discussion, but sometimes occasionally you might be like, "Oh, that was an interesting game," or "Oh, I wonder if people would be willing to meet up for games," or maybe you arrange a game evening, or you go along somewhere for the purpose of playing games. If you do any of these things, I think that it's a meaningless self-identification ultimately, but you are a gamer, and it doesn't matter how often you play games, how many games you play, how many games you have, what level of games you play, what complexity. It doesn't matter, because yeah, gaming is for everyone. Anyway, that's out of the way. I just want to, this whole notion of accessibility, yes, having a big collection, it is expensive. I have spent, definitely, if I added it all up, it does probably come up to over £1,000. Most of the games that I bought were heavily discounted. I got, for example, like one box that was like the size of my torso, which is like too big for this camera to show. But like I got like massive boxes for like 50 quid because it's on clearance, and sometimes I buy games and they end up at like £2 each. I'm privileged as a publisher. I'm able to trade my games for other people's games. So rather than costing me the retail price, it's essentially costing me the printing costs. So if my game costs X pounds, and I'm trading it for something else, then I'm getting that game for X pounds. And usually I'll kind of try and match retail price to retail price, or sale price to sale price, so it's a fair value. Like if my game is selling for, let's say, £12, and their games are selling, or like their game might be on clearance, and I saw, oh, this game's on for £5, this game's for £3, and I'll arrange to get both of them, even though they're quite big. And so I have accrued quite a big collection through the privileges that I've afforded myself by being a board game publisher. People trade games with me, people sometimes give me games. I've done reviews, like I've been sent my city, I've been sent a whole bunch of games by Hachette Board Games UK, and you see all these people who've accrued all these games. And I've done this over a very, very long time. Like when there's a big sale, okay, all of these games for like £2 each, yeah, I'll buy them. It doesn't matter if they're terrible, if some of them are terrible. If a couple of them are very good, then great. If a couple of them are average, then like I'll have fun with them, I'll learn about them. And accessibility, I guess the other side of it, apart from the accessibility for the person building the collection, and me here reminding you that you don't have to build such a big collection, is also the accessibility that you're able to find the right game for the right person. So let's say you really love big, meaty, complex games, but then someone comes along and they maybe haven't played games before. Maybe they really like storytelling. Maybe it's like, oh, we want to play a party game right now. We want to play a short game right now, whatever. You could have the right game for that right occasion. And that's the platonic ideal for having a big collection. I think a lot of people bring this in mind, but then at the same time, the flip side of it is, how often is this occasion actually going to arise? Are you really going to be bringing that many people in who have never played board games? Do you need more than one game for introducing people to board games? And make sure that these are games that you actually enjoy. Now, fundamentally, the costs of a big collection, the costs of them are the money to buy the stuff, the space to keep the stuff, and the cognitive load, the emotional labor of having so many games that you have to relearn the rules. When you play something again, you have to skim it again. You have to keep it in your mind. Somehow you have to keep these things organized. How am I going to keep these organized? It's now tricky. Do I do it by player count? Do I do it by color? And then do I do it by style of game? These all have some advantages, but there is a cognitive cost. The cost of having not so many games is basically opportunity cost. And that is the thing. I think that's the thing that scares all of us as humans, thinking, oh, one day I will want to play Carcassonne, but it will be with someone who's already played it, and we will both be a little bit bored. So I need this expansion, and one day we'll be tired of that, so we need the other expansion. And that's why you get people who buy the big box game before they even know if they like the base game. It's like, oh, what if I play the base game so many times and then we get tired? I don't think that expansions are necessary. By the time you've played a game that many times, you're probably likely to be able to get the expansion of someone else. Expansions they don't sell as well as the main game. And sure, publishers know that. Sure, publishers are not going to sell them in the same quantities. It's not like, therefore, you get loads of unsold copies of any board game expansion. But I do believe that it means that the number of times when you actually need it is probably going to be less than a lot of people imagine, because as humans, again, we are always worried about this opportunity cost. And then we imagine situations where, ooh, I could imagine playing that and I'd have so much fun with that. And maybe you would. And then we buy it. Or maybe, and in the past, I have bought Kickstarters. I have backed Kickstarters that it's taken me so much time. Like, I backed one Kickstarter that when it came time to actually pay for the shipping, it was like, well, is it even worth me paying this much shipping? Because the shipping did cost me almost as much as the game. It was like maybe a $20 game, and I needed to pay, it was like $18 for the game and maybe $11 for the shipping. And it's like, right now, do I want this game for $11? I mean, that's pretty cool, right? This is an interesting game. Like, spinning stuff, that seems cool. But I've got so many other games. Like, when would I actually play that? When the time comes to actually play it. It's like Gloomhaven. I bought it and then I sold it again when I got it for the same price, because I got it, I opened the box, I looked at it, and I thought, you know what? The cost of reading the rules, learning the rules. And nowadays, I will almost never back a game for the actual game on Kickstarter, because, again, do I need this? Am I going to actually play it? If it's, I'll generally back, but this is speaking from the perspective of someone who does have hundreds of things. And this is a ridiculous vocal minority. But the same can apply when you've got 50 games. If you've got 10 games, however many. And good morning, Josie. It's lovely to see you. And, the topic, thank you for your comments on the Facebook. And my question to you is, how many games do you have? No judgment, but how many? And I've got 400. Do you think that that's too high? Do you think it's up to you? Do you think that's it? I should keep collecting. I mean, personally, the reason why I am getting rid of games, as I say, I am okay. Like the three costs that I mentioned: cognitive, space, and financial. Financially, I've already paid for the games, and they're not valuable games. It's not like I would get loads of money for selling them all. So it's fundamentally down to space, because I love games. The games are my life. I want to be thinking about games all the time. I'm happy to read and learn the rules to a new game before I go off somewhere. But at the same time, yes, the organization and the space, that is the critical thing. And not to mention, when I'm planning a transcontinental move in the relatively near future, I can't take so many games with me. I could probably take, I don't know, like a shipping container, like not a shipping container, like a pallet. Like if I wanted to be really super extravagant, like I've got more than a pallet's worth of stuff. Like that's a lot of stuff. And even if I were to uproot my entire life and then, okay, if I move to somewhere else in London, I can hire a big van and then they can take all my stuff and it's fine. I've got all my stuff except for one box that I keep messaging them about and they never send me, which is really annoying, and to hell with them. Sorry, but I know that when they actually finally communicated, they said, oh, I'm sorry, this happened and this happened. Well, you should have told me. Anyway, that to the side. I am able to get my stuff transported in a big van, but if it's transcontinental, how do I transport my stuff? Even if I want to do it via shipping, maybe I do it on a pallet, and the amount of stuff I currently have is more than a pallet. And yeah. Josie says, I have about 160 games. I would love to have more games, but I need more space. I would also love to have my life based around games. And good morning, Alex. It is lovely to see you. How many games do you have? Would you like to have more? Would you like to have fewer? Jay Foolsguard just counted and has around 50. 20 of them are big or medium. The rest are small games like Railroad Inc. or Wibble++. Boom. Yay! Is that the original or is that Wibble++ Deluxe in the box? I mean, I'm quite proud of that. Like, the slightly bigger box is only like about 2 centimeters bigger, but it's quite good. Alex has about 120 games and is trying to have a clear out. And sure, actually, you know what? The size of the games Jay Foolsguard brings up, that's a really vital point. When I buy a game all the time, or when I'm thinking about getting rid of the game, the size of the game for me is a big thing. Sure, I'm going to keep Codex because that is like all these synergies and all these things that Dave Serlin has designed in one box, and that's pretty gosh darn cool. But like Pika Mouse, that is a beautiful game from Hachette. Maybe I'll do a review of it in the not too distant future. It's in the box that I've currently opened. You know what? At the end of this show, I might ask you which games I should play tonight. But yeah, and Jay Foolsguard has the original thing, which is in the tuck box. And like the tuck boxes are like the smallest thing that you can have with that tiny cardboard, which is like less than 1 millimeter thick. And then you just fold it, and it's like the smallest it can possibly be. And yeah, if you have like 100 of them, I could actually show you the box. I actually this is a box that used to contain exactly 100 tuck boxes. See, this is, I mean, I've changed it slightly. This used to be 100 of in a Buying Junior, but now it's question mark. But you know, that's 100 games. I mean, I don't count them as games in my collection. That would be games to sell. But that's a lot of games, and it's hardly any space. I mean, if you had 100 games that size, imagine like how many games you could have, and it would be just like one shelf. That would fit on one cube of a Calyx. Sure, it would probably be still quite hard to get them organized and all of them visible. But yeah, I mean, and then that goes into the how you display these things, because things like Paco games, which are either Paco games or it would probably be Win, Lose, Bananas, the smallest game that I know, which is 3 cards. And then Button Shy games are pretty small, but they're a little bit bigger. Anyway, Paco games with the huge, all those small things. And you just get such a variety of possible experiences. But then when we talked about earlier, having that accessibility, someone comes over and it's like, hey, play this game, it's cool. Like, with a tiny little game, you can have smaller cards, smaller text. There's not quite the experience that you can have with big chunky components, which might be big text, easier to read. And I would urge people to remember that, yeah, sure, take, you know, absolutely have Wibble++ or the L deck and Kitty Cataclysm and stuff by me. But also you might want to have like something to entice people in, something like Corridor or whatever. Alex says, no game is worth keeping if you don't enjoy it, even if it doesn't take up much space. 100%. And this can be such a fallacy. And let's also talk about series. Like when the Paco games, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, blah, blah. The truth is, there is one of them that I don't enjoy at all. I don't enjoy Fly. I mean, I love Hugh. I think that Hugh is brilliant. Bus is pretty solid. Gem is good. TKO is Fly, no. I can't see myself ever playing that again. And yet I keep it. Why do I keep it? Partially because, yes, I am seduced by the fact that it's super small. And also partially because I'm seduced by the numbers on the side of the box. The publisher has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it goes up to like 12, and then there's 2 additional ones. But yeah, it's just, I don't want to have just one missing number. Do you know what I mean? And that feeds into our sense of completionism. And sure, as a publisher, like, I'm not against Alan Paul doing that for the, what are they called, Pocket Campaign series. But it does feed into unhealthy habits. Got to Marie Kondo your collection sometimes, says Alex. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's the thing. Like, if I've got Fly and then it's like, oh, I've got the joy because I can see all of my things and it's lined up in this number and that fills me with joy, then fair enough. But is it joy? Would I actually just feel freer if I just said, you know what, out of all of the pack of games, they're all pretty good, generally, but these 3 of them, I'm probably not going to want to play with people anymore. And the only sense of playing them is out of completion. So you know what? If someone else wants Fly, take it. And yeah, to remind people, if you want presents, then please comment on my YouTube video and just pay the cost of postage and I'll send it to you. But yeah, let's go back. And there were a few comments that... So firstly, Alex says, I have some games which I'm just not playing anymore. Or single-use games I've played already. Like single-use games. Like we've got escape room in a box type stuff. We've got adventure games from Matthew Dunstan. We've got stuff like Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective. Quite often there's a strong story or there's a strong puzzle to be solved. And sometimes these are things that we can pass on. And we can say, hey, this is a lovely thing. You like Sherlock Holmes? Here you go. I've no use for it anymore because I've already done this. And I think that as society, we should do so much more of this because there is a cost that I hadn't mentioned before. Not only does it cost us the money to get it, the space, the cognitive load of having these things, relearning the rules, but there is an environmental cost as we get more and more games. I mean, I want to be paid for my labor. I want more people to buy Yogi. I'm not going to deny it. I would like to sell, you know, last year I sold less than, 2021 went down compared to 2020, which I was a bit unhappy about. And obviously, from a crass financial perspective, I would love everyone to buy all my games. Buy all my games. Give me money. If you don't want the games, then you always have the option of giving me money anyway. That sounds terrible. And as publishers, we need to be careful of the environmental costs. I know that Rob told me that for future Busy Bargain bags, they are using biodegradable recycled plastic, which I'm really happy about because that's a benefit. And so it's not so hard on the environment. And so Rob did that for me because they know that I'm going to be probably printing like at least 600 things with them, which isn't a massive amount, but considering that Rob mainly does print on demand, yeah, it's a decent amount. So Rob was able to like buy a few hundred recycled biodegradable bags. But yeah, when you've got these things, when you've got books, pass them on to someone, let them enjoy them. And if you're just not playing it anymore, why do you need it? Do you need it for research? Maybe you could upload some of those images to Board Game Geek, and then you'll have that information ready for you later on, and so will everyone else. It's like you're doing a great service. Like, part of the reason why I review games is as a way to let go, as a way to record my thoughts, as a way to think about what I liked, what I felt was a little bit weird. Like, I do feel like the diagonal card in Sagrada, the fact that I kind of feel like they should have had more weird cards like that or cut that out potentially. But that's just me. I'm not wanting to make this whole show about that one thing. But if you're not playing something, yeah, why do you need it? And yeah, obviously, if you've got a board game cafe, or if you're in France or Germany, maybe you've got a ludothèque nearby, or maybe you're somewhere else that has board games in the libraries, which is an amazing thing. And I think that we should have more board games in libraries, because let's share our board games. If someone wants to borrow your board game, when I was living with McCall and McCall said, oh, I wouldn't let McCall just borrow my game without asking. But, if McCall asked, I never said no. I mean, there would have been maybe a couple of games that I might have said no to. Like if McCall wanted to borrow Codex or my expensive Magic the Gathering cards and take them into work, might have been like, oh, I'm not sure, but you could take this instead. I might have suggested something different that I feel less precious about. But we played a game, Moral Dilemma, that was like a game about bringing and like share your games, make them available to other people, play them with other people, and if other people enjoy them, then say, hey, would you like to have this? Would you like this? And see if other people want it. Share the joy of games, because if it's not a game for you, maybe someone else will like it. And yeah, I do hope that I find someone who actually wants presents for the cost of postage. It would be a bit sad if I don't, but you know what I mean. Like, anyway, carrying on with the comments. Josie says, I love a small game that can fit in a handbag. Yes, 100%. And I've got a little box. I'm going to probably spray paint this red, but covering up this is a box that I've got, and in this I can keep about it. If I'm putting in my own games, I can put a good like maybe 10 games into here, and so that it's a good size for all my prototypes for the day. When I go to playtest on a Friday, I've kept these boxes because I can put all the cards in, put in some extra blank cards, and then that can go in my cycle bag. I always carry my cycle bag, which is pretty big. I have to fit my lock in there, fit other things, and when I'm going shopping, it's got a good amount of space. But yeah, if you're just carrying a handbag, or if you're going round and you've got pockets, and maybe you've got big jacket pockets, I don't know, like games that can offer you versatility, and games that can, yeah, like you could put 3 of the pack of games into a little area, or 6 button shy games into the space that would normally be taken up by one big deck. Or you could use one of the L decks like Wibble plus, and then that gives you access to like 20 plus games. Or if you only include the rules in the box, then like 6. But anyway, yeah, I do get it. Like the appeal of wanting all these things. Alex says, I buy a lot of puzzle and mystery games because I feel like they don't count towards my collection total, as they're temporary. But are they really temporary? Because how long does it take you to play them? And do you actually get rid of them afterwards? Because Alex says, I've had over a dozen for at least a year. And is that because you've not been playing them as fast as you've been getting them? Is that because you hold on to them after you play them and then you can't bring yourself to let go? What's the issue? Also, being part of an open gaming group has given me access to lots of games I wouldn't have been able to try. Yes, and if you maybe... I have lived with a gamer in the past. For a short while, for multiple years, I lived with Rocky, who I met at London on Board, and then I played a lot of their collection, and that was really nice. And when I got games, we would play through all of those things, and so we would play each other's collections. And whenever I go to London on Board, I mean, sure, when I went, we played 3 games that I brought, but we also played Sagrada, which is a fairly big box. I mean, it's not big, but it is a big box. I mean, it's a full-sized box, as big as you would expect an average modern board game, like Ticket to Ride size, Catan size. Like, these are not huge boxes, but they are big boxes. And yeah, these small boxes that I'm talking about, not only are they good for transportation, but they are also good for reducing the cost. And anyway, so it's been a bit of a blether. Have I reached any conclusion? I think that if I wanted to put a number on it, I would actually put a size ratio onto it. I would say about maybe arbitrarily 4 of these boxes. That feels like a reasonable thing to get my collection down to. And again, this can hold 100 copies of Innerbind Junior. And if it was all top boxes, then sure, I could have 400 of them, but I do like big box games. So then when I'm having it, when I'm thinking about putting it onto the shelf, when I'm thinking about right now, what I want is enough that they can fit on the cupboard in the living room. That is my plan. When I travel, it will be enough that can fit in that few boxes. And I could get rid of fly. That would be an easy thing to do. And maybe there's a mental load, because I've talked about the cognitive load, about the fact that you need to relearn these games. You need to remember where your games are. It's another aspect. But frankly, it's part of a series. I don't care too much about getting rid of it. It's tiny. It's like that size. At which point, I'm just thinking, let me get rid of those big boxes. So in conclusion, my plea to other publishers is, for goodness sake, make your game smaller. Because, let me ask everyone, this is actually going to be as I come up to the end, this is going to be my real question of the day. I've already asked you how many games you've had, and I appreciate you all telling me. And if you're watching this after the fact, I am interested in this as well. But thinking about the costs of having games, I mean, there's the environmental cost of, should I have this game? Is it better for me to pass it on to someone else? Because then maybe by them having that game, they are not using extra resources, because by me having Magic Maze from someone, that meant that I didn't have to buy my own copy. And once I've played it a few times, honestly, I do want to play it with a bigger group. I'm probably going to give it to, I'm going to pass it on to a friend, probably. That might be Chloe, that might be Ruth. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But the question is, the environmental concern, the cost concern of like the acquisition and the money that's tied up in these games, the space concern, like of all these games are taking so much space. And then the cognitive load of having all of these games, and then you think about them, and then you think about, oh, when do I play this? Okay, and there's the decision paralysis. Like if you've got 3 people over and you want to play something like, and you've got one option, then you play that. If you've got 20 options, then you're going to spend potentially 3 minutes deciding what to play. So my question is, which one of these costs, how would you rank them in order? And to remind you, that's environmental, the money you spend, the space it takes, and the cognitive overhead of having stuff. How would you rank them? For me, the number one issue is probably the space. Number 2, then that's like so far ahead. And then number 2 and 3 would be like financial, although, like I say, most of the games that I get, I wouldn't feel comfortable selling, a game that Alley Cat Games gave me for review. and I wouldn't feel, it wasn't even for me to public review, and I wouldn't feel comfortable reviewing it because of our relationship. I got it for free. I'm going to pass it on to somebody. But yeah, I sent them a voice message with all my thoughts on it, and lucky them. But yeah, you know what? I might actually take it to dancing, because true story, we've got an hour between the first class and the second class if you're a beginner, and we've got an hour there. And last week, I mean, the first week was like, oh, there's this hour, and then I said, oh, next time we should bring board games. And then, but I did have a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify some makes noises. We just played that the once, but then the second week we played Wibble. We just played that once, and then we played Cortex, and someone else had brought Cortex, and it was really nice to see that someone else had brought that. And so now it's like, oh, you like games? Maybe I'll invite you over someday, like when we've been doing this for a few more weeks. But yeah. Anyway, so the cost is part of the reason why I don't accrue games, but honestly, that's lower. The part of the reason why I would want to get rid of games or keep my stuff at a certain amount is number one, space. Number two, I'm going to say environmental factors. Number three, money. And number four, cognitive load. And that's kind of the spacing between those two things. So, yeah, what do you think? So yes, let me cognitive, environmental, financial, and what was the other thing I said? Space. So those are the four things. I'm asking you to put them in order because I'm curious, is everyone's primary thing space? Because if so, that just gives credence to the value of not having boxes with lots of empty space. And yes, 100%. And I do want to say, it depends what you mean by developing. I've developed lots of games for Alley Cat Games. I think I developed about 8 of them. Almost 10, let's say. Anyway, so but the developer, when I talk about the development, is giving the rules the final polish, giving them the final tweaks, and that has nothing to do with the production and logistics. But yes, when you're publishing, when you're manufacturing, when you go through the process of publishing those games, yes, it is a factor, 100%. And just to just to show you once again the game that I am getting rid of. It's not like super big, but it is clearly bigger than needed because cards, big plastic insert, box, single, like, it's not single-use plastic, but it is going to be thrown away eventually. You can't say this game will last forever, and I believe that this game in the year 3000 will still be worth playing. But the fact is that this bit of plastic that you've made for this game is going to probably last 1,000 years in terms of how quickly it will biodegrade, unless you use plastic, which I'm really glad that Rob is doing for me now, which doesn't biodegrade, and which does biodegrade, sorry. And like this plastic, it's completely unnecessary. Where you could have, like, just imagine a flush box. Like I've got for Kitty Cat. Like, sorry, I don't mean to keep on tooting my own horn, but like just a smaller box. This was completely unnecessary. I think that when backing, when purchasing, not just maybe don't buy the game, but also tell publishers this is an issue. I'm not going to do it because not only is it an environmental issue, but it is a space issue. And for me, those are massively problematic things. Alex says, a publisher's main duty is to create a sellable product, and a big part of that is perceived value and visual appeal, which increases with the larger box size, at least in the retail environments. Yes, 100%. But that's main duty if you're talking about main duty to profit. And I don't believe that we should have corporations that are always about maximizing the profit. When I talk about what my goals are as a company, as Stuff by Bez, what I want to do is maximize the amount of fun that people have with my stuff. And that kind of, I want to maximize the amount of fun that my games bring into the world. That's a slightly different thing. Because there's always negative fun. There's always going to be someone out there, even if I want to make it super clear what this game is about, there's always going to be someone who buys Yogi and plays it with someone. Maybe there will be one of their friends that really didn't want to play such a silly game, and then they play it and they're like, oh, I didn't have fun with that, and that makes me a little bit sad. But if everyone else at the table is having, good fun, then that's okay. And also, like, when I think about the plastic that things are, like, is the amount of plastic actually maximizing the amount of fun? Now, when I talk about maximizing the amount of fun, I think about, yes, making a good game, but also making money so that I can keep making games, making it less stressful so that I can keep making games, so that I'm not always super stressed. And yeah, that's part of why I have Chris over like 1 or 2 days a week to help me. And yeah, in theory, Dina and Vegard are here to like reduce my stress, and I'll be giving them all a shout out on my next Kickstarter, as well as Rob, because that feels like the main team. Like with these Rob for printing, Dina helping me like talk about marketing and making the marketing plan together, Vegard doing distribution, and Chris doing like the technical things that I don't want to have to do. But like reducing that stress means that I can keep making more stuff. Making it cheap means that more people can buy it and have fun with it. But at the same time, I want to make it expensive so that I can keep making more stuff. And I want to make it big so that, yes, it sells so that I can keep making more stuff, but I want to make it smaller because I do feel like I do have an environmental responsibility. And that's the key thing. I think that as soon as you go public with your company, yes, that is the problem with publicly traded companies, that it's all about, yeah, once you're Hasbro, once you're Simon, once you're Asmodee. But most companies are not publicly traded. Even when you look at indie boards and cards, even when you look at Portal Games, which are massive companies, they have tens of full-time employees, but they are still independent. And so fundamentally, the owner can still say, you know what, this is one of my values, and I'm going to do that. It doesn't matter whether my values are going to result in more sales, because sure, people do sometimes buy things because it matches their values. And like, if I put on the side of my thing, like, oh, I'm using environmentally conscious plastic, I do hope that maybe it results in 0.5% more sales, realistically 1% more sales. Is it going to be worth the increase in price? I don't know. But it's important to me, and that's the key thing. And yes, even for publicly traded companies, as consumers, Josie says, maybe as consumers, we need to push publishers to go smaller through what we buy. 100% Josie, 100% I agree. Yep, J Fool's Guard, it is fun. It is very fun. We've got Mambo and Cha Cha Cha, an hour of each on the Wednesday, and then 1 hour of salsa on Thursday, then an hour break while we wait for the intermediate people, and then 1 hour of bachata, and then up to 1 hour of social dancing. But I've never stayed until the very end of the social dancing, except like last week I stayed like maybe 10 minutes before the end. But I want to have like maybe as long I'll stay for the two bachatas, but like also it's definitely social and having that 1 hour to chat and everything. Anyway, so, and there are a few publishers who specialize in direct-to-consumer sales who break this tradition, says Alex, of big stuff. For example, Bots and Shy and Fowers Games. Yeah, 100%. And Fowers Games, if you look at the size of the box, it is super expensive for the size of the box, but they're not like, oh, we're going to give you a bigger box just so it feels more valuable. No, they're going to keep it in a box that is the same size, that they feel, hey, this looks really good on your shelf. And you are allowed to rebox games if you want. Yes, that's true, but then if you're passing them on for environmental reasons, then maybe it doesn't feel as exciting. A lot of people do cut down boxes to exactly fit the components. That is cool, but again, that doesn't solve the issue of the plastic insert. In fact, it makes it even worse. It means that if I cut this down, then suddenly this plastic insert, I throw it into the garbage. I don't believe that this is recyclable. And also recycling plastic is problematic because there is more supply of recycling plastic than there is demand. And we need more plastic that's already been recycled. Like now we're starting to get bottles that are made of 50% recycled plastic, and we're starting to get little baggies that are made of recycled plastic. This is great stuff. Let's keep this going. Oh my gosh, it's been a raid. I do apologize. Time Ruler, thank you so much for raiding. Lots of love, and I hope that you are well. Just talking about games and the environmental issues and what is a good number of games to have, and what, for everyone who's just come, the questions that I've got is how many games do you have? And for these 4 factors, cognitive, environmental, financial, and space, which of these factors are bigger factors when you think about what to keep? And yeah, environmental, games do take environmental resources, financial, they cost money, space, they take space, cognitive, when you've got games that you have to think about them, take more time deciding what to play. Let me jump ahead and say thank you again, Time Roller, Legends DM. It's lovely to have you join us, and once more, lots of love, and thank you for being here. And let's sing a quick song. Thank you, Time Ruler, for the raid. I want you to know it's appreciated, whether it's breakfast or bedtime. Either way, it's a meeting of minds. If you're over in the USA, then I guess it's very late. Is it 6 a.m. over there? So I hope you had a good stream today. What were you doing? Let me know so I can celebrate your stream. That song needs a bit more work, but yes, what were you streaming about? How are you doing? I hope that you're well. Anyway, we were talking about Bots and Shy and Fowers Games, reboxing. Also, the more copies of a fun game you sell, the more overall fun you've created in the world, says Alex. Yeah, that's the key thing. And I think that that's a good thing about, I'm really proud of my new Busy bargain bag model, where I print, like, I think 100 is a good number. I'm, like, for my next game, I was thinking 50, but yeah, for a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements, but I think 100, even if it takes me a few months to sell them all, like, even if it takes me a year to sell them all, I'll be able to keep them just in a wee box. It's not a big space issue, let's be honest. But yeah, then I make that, and then once that's sold out, then I do the Kickstarter, and then once I do that, potentially. And it's kind of like a way of asking the public, hey, which of these games are actually fun, so that people can play the game. So it's like, I think there's something nice about kickstarting a second or third edition of a game, because there's the honesty, like people understand what the game is all about, and hopefully people can read the instructions And I would urge people to try and say, like, if you had a game right now, before you buy it, would you actually play it? Would you play it tonight? Would you play it tomorrow? When can you next actually see yourself playing it? Not just in a hypothetical, oh, this would be fun to play with my friends, but when would you actually play it? When would you get the value out of it? Do you know what I mean? Talking about the 4 factors, J. Folsgaard says space is the big thing, then money, then environmental reasons, and then and then they're quite far after, then maybe cognitive, not wanting to think about them. Apparently they stopped recycling in Time Roller City. That is terrible. That is, I am upset, and angry is the strong word, but I'm a bit cross to hear that. I'm a bit upset. That feels like a big step backwards. What the tarnation is up with that? What the bloody what? Yeah, I'm a bit cross with that to read that. Josie, thank you for being here. Lots of love, and I appreciate that. And yes, I will keep that in mind. I will invite more guests. I will see if someone else wants to come on and have a lovely time. Legend says it's 1 a.m. Oh my gosh, it is pretty late, but still, you know, I went to bed at 2 a.m. I was just kind of doing things on the internet all night. Time Roller has 880 games and 118 expansions. Wow, that's quite a bit. Playing Time Garden. That's what you were doing on your stream. That sounds like lots of fun. And I hope that... And so, yes, what is the biggest issue in your mind out of... Let me... out of the things that I mentioned here, how would you rank these things? I think that this is a good point to finish the conversation for today. I think that if anyone has anything that you want to say, you know, the wrap up always takes me a couple of minutes, so you've got plenty of time if you start typing now. And if you're watching this after the fact, again, I am interested for you, how many games do you have, and how would you rank these factors in terms of how much they affect your game playing? Like, the fun to me is overall, like, fun is such a vague concept. Like, if a game is fun or not, that determines whether I keep it. But, like, that kind of goes without saying to my mind. But then, what stops you from having... Because there are so many fun games. I enjoy games. There's at least, 3,000 games in the world that I would enjoy playing tonight. Not all of them. I mean, I don't have time to play 3,000 games tonight, but I am having at least one friend over later on, possibly 2. We will see. We will probably have a bit of a chat, go for a walk, have dinner, and play a game. And all of the games that I play tend to be fun, but what's making it so that I want to sell off games and get to a certain number? What's making it so that you want to sell off games? Because there are so many more games that could be fun. And yes, for sure, it trumps the other factors. But within the other 4 factors, that's what I'm asking is, what order are they in? Time Roller is a collector and a hoarder, and so presumably you have the space. Presumably you have a really big house to be able to house all these things. Now, let me double check the bits rolling in to see if I have addressed everything that I was talking about. So, yes, I talked about the value of board games in public libraries. I think that this would increase accessibility to games, allow people to keep games. lessens the environmental load, it lessens the financial load, it lessens the space load. How many games should I have? I'm going to say as many as can fit in that cupboard to the side. You don't know where I'm waving, but yes, consumerism is a big issue. I do think that that's a very real problem. I talked about the value of the big, small collections. I mean, the small collection, you know what you want. So the big collection, you have more possibility. And yeah, like if something sells out, if something's no longer available, do you need it? No, you still don't. I mean, there's so many good games. There's so many more good games coming. But at this point, I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to wrap up and say, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. What are you up to? Is there anything you want to share? I promise that you care, that I care. I promise that we care, because it's a lovely crowd, and everyone who's been here is this lovely individual, whether it's serious or frivolous, something you need to get done, something that's just fun. Let me know. I am curious. What are you up to? I am going to try to book accommodation for Aircon. I'm going to make a post telling people that I need one more volunteer for Aircon and ask in a public setting. I'm going to try and sort out my bank details for my next Kickstarter. And then hopefully I'll be done with that within a couple of hours. Fingers crossed. And then I'll just kind of spend the rest of the day tidying up and maybe having a quick walk and until my friends arrive, and then we'll walk, we'll talk, we'll play a few games. I'm looking forward to it. Hello, Leifta. It is lovely to see you, and thank you for the compliments. Yes, and professional makeup does make a big difference. And yeah, having the fake eyelashes and everything. Time Roller says before COVID, they did take games to the library and taught them 2 or 3 times a month. That's great, fantastic. And I did something similar back in the day with, I used to do something for drafts before I officially worked there. I was running a monthly board game evening, although it's a weird thing because they were getting a financial benefit and it was a financial cost for people to go there, but it kind of made it cognitively easier because I was like, hey, anyone can come and it's like a social thing. People can mix up the tables. And what I was doing was showing off other people's games, but also always I'd play at least 2 of my own games. So it was kind of, the benefit for me was a bit of self-promotion. But yeah, what are you up to today? I'm going to now recap and wrap up before I finish up. So I guess, yeah, I've got a lot of games. I've got about 400 games. Games, it matters how fun they are, like for the individual game, how big it is, how much it costs. Well, like, obviously these are the main factors for how much enjoyment. Like Alex talked about the Marie Kondo thing, which is you look at it and say, does this spark joy? I mean, it sparks a little bit of joy, this game. Do you want it? If you want it, you can have this game. Just comment in the YouTube video where I reviewed it and give me and then say you want it and I'll get in touch with you. And you can send me your address and I'll send it to you for the cost of postage. But anyway, that aside, me trying to get it's genuinely a good 6.5, 10 if I had to give it a rating. The point is, there's so many games. Having small games, like I could fit 100. There used to be 100 games in this one box. That's how when a Bind Junior came to me in boxes of 100, which was slightly weird because in a Bind the original and in a Bind the expansions, they all came in different sizes of boxes, even though the games were exactly the same size. A box of, I believe, 168. But anyway, the point is that, yeah, size makes a difference. The space you've got makes a difference. And you don't need to have lots of games to be a board gamer. You don't need to play certain games to be a board gamer. When you're thinking about what board games to keep, yes, think about how likely is it that I'm going to get the opportunity to play this within the next year. If you're not going to realistically play it within the next year, why are you keeping it? I mean, there is so much value in passing games around, letting other people borrow games. If you do have a collection of hundreds and hundreds of games, maybe you could allow some of your friends to borrow them. Set up a private board game library. I mean, you don't have to allow strangers off the street to come in and, borrow games, obviously, but for your friends, like I said, I would always let my housemates take them into work and play them when I wasn't around. And then your games are kind of seeing more play. Those games are bringing more fun into the world. If you feel, oh, I really like trading games, therefore I want to have all the trading games. Do you? Like, how often do you actually get to play them? And do you actually really like playing, games that you learn the rules of, that you get into deeper? Or if you like playing a new game every time you get together with friends, then that's also okay. And I like what Time Roller is saying. Like, I only buy games I expect to play with my group. I have no unplayed games just to have them. But it's not just about have you played them in the past. It's also about, are you going to play them in the future? Do you get what I mean? Like, are you going to play them in the next year, not just in a vague, hypothetical future? Because, sure, I play a lot. I might, if I don't count prototypes, which changes things quite a bit, in the past week, I played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I played 8 games in the past week, and that was actually different published games. I play a lot of games, so potentially I might play, and 2 of those were other people's. So I played 6 of my own games in 1 week, and so 6 times 52, that's about 312. So maybe it makes sense for me to keep 312 games. I don't know. That I don't want to be playing new games every single time. I want to be making a strong decision and saying, you know what? I like Sagrada. I will happily play Sagrada if someone comes over. But it's not the game that I will like. I love Azul, but it's not the game that I feel I need to play this. I love Pilos, and I'm having a lot of fun with Pilos, like every time I play it. But do I get enough time to play 2-player abstract games? Maybe I shouldn't keep Pilos. Like, I'm just realizing that now. Because if we go by the, am I likely to play it? And am I playing it just to say I've played it? Or am I playing it in order because I'm enjoying it, because I'm excited to play the new thing? And there is another advantage of big games collection that I didn't get into, which is that no one gets too far ahead in terms of skill. Back in the day, I played Jungle Speed a lot. I was really good at it. And this might sound arrogant, but I got in touch with the person who made the game. I tracked them down. Tom Vashaw. I eventually met them in real life like 10 years later, and then we basically spoke as equals. And they said, oh, I played Yogi, good game. And I was like, oh my gosh, the designer of Jungle Speed said Yogi is a good game. But the point is, I played it so much that I just got too good at it. Anytime I played with friends, I was like, even with like 4 players, 5 players, I was like 95% chance going to win. And then I started playing with two hands. Like I had to use one hand for this and one hand for this, and I had to go out with both hands. So there was a little bit of cognitive load. And then I got good at that. So like then I started again winning like 80%, 90% of the time, even with that extra complication. And if they had kept on bringing out expansions so that I would keep getting confused, then I would, be able to play it with new people. And I'm never going to get rid of Jungle Speed, but the only reason I'm not playing it just now is because I want to give myself time to get worse. And that is a nice thing about two-player abstract games, because if I were to play, or having a variety of two-player games, because with three-player games, okay, everyone else has the chance to kind of do their own stuff. With some games, it's like, hey, I got the chance to do my own thing. But if I play, if I'm very good at Pelos, and then I play you at it, it's not interesting. And that is why I love Go. Because Go, you can have an interesting game with the one board, with the one... It's not as much variety enough to legitimately call it a game system, but they're playing on a 7x7 board when you're teaching the game to someone versus playing it on a 19x19, giving them 9 extra stones to start off versus playing with no stones starting off on the board. These are quite different, but still similar enough that you feel like you're still exploring the same connection, like the same meshing of rules going on. And Leaf just says, I had that with Dominion and Puerto Rico, and now I haven't played them anymore for over 5 years. And my question to you is, like, at that point, what did you do? Did you sell them because you felt, oh, I can't play this anymore, I'm too good at it? Did you keep them because you feel like, oh, I'm going to play it once enough time's passed and once I'm no longer as amazing a person and maybe I can teach people? Or do you think you'll always have that extra advantage? Because I do feel like, okay, reaction time goes down, but I do feel like I'm always, yeah. Can you enjoyably play a more niche strategy, asks Alex, to give other people a chance? Like, there's all these possible ways to give yourself these invisible restrictions to make it a more fair match. Like, for Jungle Speeds, there is no strategy. There is no decisions in that game. It is a pure game of performance. It's all about execution. Like, you see the patterns are the same, grab the thing, that's it. Now, there is possibly a strategy in terms of how you look at the cards. Like, are you going to bother thinking, are you going to, when you flip over your own card, do you try to memorize everyone else's and keep that in your mind, and then you flip over and then you look at the one that you remember being vaguely similar and checking it before you grab the totem? Or, like, there's tiny ways, but I wouldn't even call these strategies in order to be able to tweak them to give yourself a restriction. And I honestly feel like at that point, maybe it's worth just playing a different game. At which point, yeah, maybe it makes sense either keeping it as a game that you play once or twice a year, or potentially getting rid of it. And hello, Hal. It is lovely to see you. Talking about, or I'm just recapping, but we're having a bit more conversation about getting rid of games or sizes of collections. And yeah, exactly, Time Roller, that's exactly what I'm saying. You can handicap yourself, but do you want to play that way or just play a new game? And that is the question of how much is integrated with that game. Like, how? Alex, like, when you're designing a game, do you consider that when you're designing a game? Like, could someone play cryptid and, hey, I'm really good at this, so I'm going to start off giving you other people a bit more information? Is that even an option? I mean, I know it's not an option in the rules as written, but could you do that? Like, and then the other question is, how much fun is it if the same person keeps winning? That is the thing. Leifta says, I sold Dominion because I was too good at it, but I kept Puerto Rico because I like how the Alia boxes look together. Yes, we were talking about that number, and I was talking about how I should get rid of at least 2 of Chris Handy's games, because some brilliant, wonderful games, but 2 of them I'm probably not going to play again for pleasure. So why am I even keeping it? If it's just to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that feels like a bad reason. Handicapping yourself is, again, Go is brilliant. And Pilos Corridor. In Corridor, you could give one player fewer blocking pieces. If I am, I would say, a low intermediate player. Like, I'm certainly, if there was like a UK championship, I probably wouldn't be like in the top 10, I'm guessing. But Corridor, like, I do believe that if there's a massive skill disparity, you could probably just give one person like 3 extra things. Like, just say, okay, one of these goes to you, and you've got 2 extra, and I'll get rid of one of mine, chuck it out the game. Alex says maybe I'd only be in the top 20. I don't know what the skill level of Corridor players is. I'd probably enter, but I wouldn't expect to do very well. I just feel like the question is also, how much fun is it if the same person keeps winning? Like, Wibble specifically, because of the catch-up mechanism, as you get more cards, it becomes harder. And so, yes, you are getting more cards, you're getting more points, it's becoming harder for you. It means that the other people are going to score points. They're probably never going to win. You are going to win, but it means that they are doing something. They're engaging with the game. It's fun. If it's a game where I am 1 second behind every single time, like David Brain played an early prototype of a game about quickly grabbing creatures, that's totally different. This was before there were turnips or any root veg. Back in the early days, like, it was things in the middle, everyone's racing for things. It was like kind of like double, and every time David Brain was like half a second behind like everyone else, and just said, you know what, it just feels like there's no point in me playing anymore. I'm checking out, because what's the point? And similarly with Jungle Speed, if it takes 5 of the people at the table 1 second to see the match, and it takes the 6th person at the table 2 seconds to see the match, they're not going to have a good time. But then on the other side, you've got something like Agricola, where even if you do pretty badly, you've got the joy of seeing your farm come together, and you've got the joy of having scored bits. And like Sagrada or Azul, it's like, hey, there's some blocking, there's some, getting in each other's ways, but fundamentally you're building your own thing, and there's some satisfaction even if you don't win. And I think that, for me, again, it goes back to the key number 1 thing of fun. And I think, yeah, when it comes to game design, that feels like a really good topic for a future day. But anyway, recap and wrap up. Fundamentally, think about fun. Think about how often you play something. Think about the space it takes, the money it costs, the environmental issues, and there is actual cognitive labor in having all the options to play all these games. And if games are not your entire life, frankly, games are basically my entire life, then maybe you don't want that cognitive aspect. So those are the things. And for now, that is me recapped and wrapped up. Now I'm going to finish up. If you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez everywhere. You can check out what the future streams are going to be. Tomorrow, I have Jessica Mederingham. We are going to talk about the soul of a game, how a game can change, how a game can mutate, how sometimes you start a game based around one thing and then you take away that one thing. And it's like, oh, this game is now even better because it's developed into a different kind of key bit. And how do you work out what to keep? How do you work out what to change? On Wednesday, I don't know what I'm chatting about. Thursday, having Dina over. Friday will be a quick 5-minute thing. Saturday, I'll be doing a quick 5-minute stream from Friendly Board Gamer Con. And I guess on Sunday, I'll have to catch up a wee bit with everything. And yeah, but you can check all this out and spread the word. If you think that this has been useful, then please share some of these ideas. If you think that my streaming is useful, or if you want to suggest future topics or future guests, please do. I want to say thank you, everyone. Massive thank you for Time Roller, for the raid. I do appreciate it. Time Roller and Legends for popping in. Thank you for J Foolsguard, Josie, Alex, and Hal for being part of the conversation. And yeah, thank you for everyone giving me the support. And if you're watching after the fact, leave a comment and I will reply. You know what? Because we've got a decent crowd today, I am going to have a quick look and see what's going on elsewhere in Twitch. Oh, my friend Dan is playing music. Amadeus is playing music. And also Erin Shea Live. So, let me go with, Erin Shea or Amadeus or Dan. Let's go with Dan, who plays guitar. Let me see what's going on there. Okay, yes, let us raid Dan live. Talented guitarist, vocalist. Raid Dan live. And yes, Hal, I am happy that a bit that you listened to was interesting. I think like lots of these things, it's just, I blether and then things pop up, and then people being here is the reason why I keep on talking, because people provoke my thoughts and then I talk. But it's always lovely to have you, and I would love to get, maybe you could be part. I'd love to have you on as a future guest if you would like. But anyway, everyone, this is the end of the show. So for now, bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye. This is the end of the show. Bye. And now it's time to go. Bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye. This is the end of the show. Bye. And now it's time to go. And if you're watching live, we're going to raid Dan, so copy paste this bit and then help us make a splash. In any case, so much love. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the music, either as we go into Dan if you're watching on Twitch, or enjoy music in your life. Enjoy games. Have a wonderful. Bye.